the first thing you're going to need is some Mr. Mark Setter and some Mr. Mark Softer. It also comes in Setter and Softer brands from Microsol. Another thing that's optional but highly recommended is some form of sponge or wet material to put your decals on while they sit. This particular one has a reservoir and a sponge. You also need an X-Acto knife and a pair of tweezers and a cotton swab. Today we're going to be applying this Xeon decal to a PG Zaku. I'm just going to cut it out, pick it up, and place it into the water and give it a good swish. I'm trying to do most of this tutorial in real time so you can see how long it takes generally to apply the decal and for the decal to lift off of the paper. I'm also going to be applying this rescue decal as well to the chest. And once I have it cut out, give it a good swish in the water and set it on the wet sponge. I'm going to take an anti-static brush. This is totally optional, just to remove any dust. I'm going to get the Mr. Mark Setter. I'm going to apply a few dots onto the chest piece here. And I'm going to reach over and grab the Waterslide. And one of the ways I like to test is I just take my finger and kind of move it around on top of the decal, see if it comes off. And it does, so it's ready to be applied. And I'm just going to plop it on. You can see the capillary action kind of suck the decal onto the model. And after I place it, I'm just going to prod and move it around with the tweezers to get it right into position I want. You have a lot of time to move your decal around, slide it around. And I'm going to take a cotton Q-tip and I'm going to slowly and very gently kind of just squeegee the water out as I roll the Q-tip along the surface of the decal. You can also press onto the decal, it's not going to hurt anything, but the main thing is just to be gentle with your pressure and even with your pressure. Now this particular application is kind of tricky because it is curved in two different directions, so this is a good opportunity to learn some things about how to get rid of wrinkles. I'm pointing out the wrinkles here, and I'm going to use some Mr. Mark Softer now in order to attempt to remove some of those wrinkles, or at least diminish them. And give it one last squeegee here, just to make sure that the decal, the Mr. Mark Setter, is really adhering the decal to the model kit. And then I'm going to apply the Mr. Mark Softer in kind of a swishy back and forth motion to just make sure that I'm really getting it into all the cracks and crevices that are on the outside of the decal, and to just coat a thin layer over the top of the decal as well. It doesn't have to sit there for long, but what I'm doing is I'm getting it underneath the decal into those cracks, and then I'm squeegeeing out what's left. And it doesn't take very much of this liquid to make the decal conform more to the surface. You can already see that it's diminished those wrinkles substantially. You don't want it to set on the decal for too long because it can cause the whole decal to kind of shrivel and wrinkle, which isn't always a problem, but in this particular case, it's such a prominent location, I want to make sure that I don't leave too much on there for too long. Again, this is all in real time, so you can see how long I left it on there. General rule of thumb is put it on and then remove it. You can always add more, you can't take it off. Now here I'm pointing out that I want to make sure that the decal, since it's sitting over a panel line, it's going to be cut into place so that when I panel line later, I can actually run the panel liner over the decal. This is a very tiny detail that may not matter to everyone, but it matters to me in this particular case. You can be as particular as you want. So I'm just going to very carefully run my blade across into the panel line. And then I'm going to take the Q-tip again and kind of rub it over, push it in. So this decal is getting a lot of attention, but again, it was kind of a tricky spot. The next up is the rescue decal. I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to use my thumb and kind of move the decal a little bit. See if it's ready. And yeah, it slides right off. I'll just take the Q-tip here and remove the excess liquid. And I get very lucky with this placement. It just kind of sits exactly where I would want it after I get it on there. And there's not really much else to do. Looks pretty good. Now we're going to add some more decals onto the thruster cover on the backpack of the Zaku. And I'm just going to quickly cut out these triangles here. I'm not following any type of guide. I'm just kind of picking out decals that I think would look good. The more you do this, the more easy it becomes to just apply decals quickly. And I'm going to show a trick here. I'm just cutting out a chunk of 4 decals. There's no need to limit yourself to just 1 decal at a time, because when you're using the wet sponge, they can sit there for upwards of 30 minutes before you have to worry about them actually disintegrating or anything. And I'm going to use some Mr. Mark setter. Put a couple dots on. And the decals should slide right off the paper. And again, I'm showing this in real time with no flashy graphics or transitions, just so you can see what the actual process looks like and how long it takes. And you can see after it's been placed, you have a lot of time to manipulate and move the decal around. There's no stress to be had here. You don't have to rush anything. And if a decal placement dries out and you need to move it, simply add more Mr. Mark setter and move the decal around until you get it exactly where you want. And you're just gently squeegeeing out that water. Now the decal may move while you're doing that, and that's fine. Just apply a little more setter, or as right here, I'm just lightly touching the decal to see if I can get it to move a little bit. I'm showing exactly what I was talking about. I'm adding some more setter to it because it adhered too much to move. And I have to lift it a little bit to get some of the capillary action to get underneath there, and bam. Now it's moving again. There is no stress. It can be moved after it's been set. Okay, time for round 2. Very gently, because when you roll it, sometimes they have a tendency to slide a little bit. And now to my eyes, it's perfect. Now we've got these 4 decals and they've become completely separated from the paper, and that's one of the reasons why we use Mr. Mark setter. I'm just going to remove a little bit of the water from the top of that piece so that they're not flying all over the place. Now here's where you can get pretty quick. I know that I want to place 4 of these decals, and I know basically where I want to put them, so I'm just going to put a dot down and pull the decal right off the paper. And with my other hand, I'm going to use the Q-tip, kind of push it around a little bit. When I feel like that's good, I go on to the next one. Now my camera ran out of space right there, so I had to cut. But we'll do the other side here. It's also important to note at this point that I have gloss coated the parts that I'm going to be decaling. And that's pretty important when it comes to decals, but not necessarily a rule. The gloss coat just gives a smoother surface for your decal to sit on. And it gives less opportunity for air or discoloration to appear beneath the decal itself. There are ways to fix that, and I can make another tutorial on that later on. If you're applying to bare plastic, this isn't an issue at all. And just a little dab of Mr. Mark Setter. And I'm just placing the decal, sliding it around. Again, not stressful. Will you run into issues? Of course. You run into issues with everything you do with model building or customization in general. Will you rip a decal? Yep, you will rip a decal. Can you fix it? Yeah, just slide the decals together where you ripped it. Waterslide, slide. And that's one of the things that makes them so forgiving. And I'm just rolling out again. And that's it for the backpack cover. Now we're going to go back to that chest piece. I noticed that there was some bubbling still happening underneath the decal. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to take an X-Acto knife with a sharp pointy edge, and I'm going to press and poke essentially holes into these wrinkles. And what I'm doing is I'm creating space for Mr. Mark Softer to go into. And I am really, really close into the model right here. So I'm actually using the viewfinder to do my modeling here, which is not ideal. But I just put a little bit of the Mr. Mark Softer on there, and it goes right underneath the holes that I poked. And I just let it sit there for a moment. And I'm going to press down with my blade just to make sure it's really gotten underneath the decal there. And I'm going to soak up gently and rub it down, and the wrinkles have pretty much disappeared. Now remember how close in we are here. Very close. I'm just going to squeegee it out. Now there's one more location here at the top that I thought looked especially egregious. So I'm going to do the same thing again here. And right now my camera is literally 1/4 of an inch away from the decal, so these details are very small, and most of the time you may not even care. However, it's great practice to pay attention to these details and remove as many of the blemishes as you can, because that's how you get better. I applied some more softer there, and I'm just gently removing the extra liquid. You can see I didn't leave it on there for long, just long enough to get some of the liquid underneath, because what's going to do now is it's going to sit underneath there and melt that decal onto the plastic. That's what the softer does. And there we go. 2 decals applied to the chest. Just checking this one really quick to see if there's any air underneath. And this one adhered really well. No wrinkles. And that pretty much does it for this tutorial. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. And let me know in the comments below if you'd like tutorials on other things. Bye-bye.